is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That is brand new stuff from the Ellefson Project. The name of that song was Sleeping Giants. Of course, that is David Ellefson playing bass on that song. And, it's a great record that I have been endorsing for quite a little while now. And on the line right now, we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, the bass player there, and the creator of everything Ellefson, whether it's music or coffee or books or whatever. It's the great Dave Ellefson. Dave, how are you, man?
Hey, Chris, how are you, man? How you doing?
I am doing good, man, although I have to admit, and I'm sure you're getting this today, the metal world is rocked by the announcement of your singer.
Yeah, we were, kind of bracing for the bomb today, knowing that we had to get an announcement out about it. And, I guess, look, prayers from everybody. Thoughts and prayers are always welcome. Dave he started his treatment. We've been in Nashville for the last almost month and a half working on the album. So we were sort of watching this all unfold before us. And Dave's, he has begun treatment. So things are moving forward with that. And yeah, there just became a reality where it was like, look, in order to do this treatment properly, follow the doctor's orders, Dave can't be undergoing treatment for cancer and out playing big rock concerts, so we just had to say, all right, we got to just stop. We got to clear the deck and put this as the number one priority, which is what the announcement was today, was just addressing it and giving everybody a heads up that some shows are going to have to go away until this all gets worked out. We are keeping the cruise.
That's good.
The cruise, I think, is something of it's a different kind of a beast of a different nature because it's so many people on it, and we're kind of trying to figure out, and we may not totally know Megadeth's full participation in that until we see where Dave is at, with healing after all the treatments and everything by that point. But, we're optimistic that on some level, the band or band members or who knows, maybe even the whole band, maybe something we can have a participation on that. So, that's where it is. In the meantime, we've been working hard on the new album, and it's coming along well. I think, us getting down there back in May, last month, when we all convened in at the studio there. It's actually a house that we rented that we're working in. Yeah, it's nice because me and Dirk and Kiko sleep there, and we wake up and all the stacks and gear and the Pro Tools and everything's right there in the living room. So you kind of make music until you go to bed and make music as soon as you wake up, or wake up one day and say, I don't want to make any music at all. I'm going to go stare at the cows out in the pasture. You can do that too. So it's a really good, a good situation there. But yeah, we've made a lot of progress, on the album, and so, and I think that's something we can continue to do. I mean, if Dave hits a wall with it and just says, man, I need to just take a break just to, to get off the clock, then we'll do that. But at least, we can be working productively and getting some stuff done on the album right now.
Will it be, and I'm obviously just guessing at this point, but will it be the first time that Dave maybe doesn't have his finger on every note of of a Megadeth record? Because obviously anybody that has had a friend or a relative go through cancer, they're just not always going to be there, to do it. With you guys right in the middle of a production cycle, it's a weird time probably for you as the elder statesman, in the band, other than Dave himself.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, look, I think one thing is Dave and I have been through our share of the shit show. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, just everything that we've gone through. Ups and downs, and drug addictions, and breakups, and makeups, and everything else in between that we've been through. And the challenges of it all. And look, this is another one. We're optimistic about obviously the treatments, and the success rate is usually pretty good on this one. So I think there's a lot of, fortunately, a lot of optimism at the end of this whole thing. But yeah, look, going through this journey, it can't help but not affect you. It affects everybody. I mean, cancer is kind of like addiction. It touches the lives all those around the one who's afflicted. You know, everyone kind of is affected by it to some level, you know. Uncertainty, certainly emotional. And you're right, with Dave always being at the helm and wanting to oversee things. He already has sort of taken a hand off of a couple things to just, you know, kind of, hey, you know, roll with that and, you know, keep me posted and, you know, keep me in the loop, and, you know, kind of just take some liberties and roll off with that and see what you guys come up with. And that's really been a beautiful thing. You know, one thing about this band is we are an amazing band. I have not felt this good about the Megadeth band as I have since probably, like, you know, certainly the Rust in Peace era, and kind of right in the middle of it, like probably Euthanasia, which was kind of the middle and the sweet spot of that lineup. You know, and that album in particular, because we'd already made 2 records together, and we'd already done 2 big world tours together. And, you know, this lineup has toured almost 2.5, almost 3 years together. And me, Dave, and Kegel, of course, made Dystopia.
Sure.
But Dirk, man, Dirk is a great writer, you know, and he's written all this, you know, death metal stuff and his grindcore stuff. And obviously Megadeth is quite different from that. But, you know, Dirk writes stuff on guitar, and because he's not really a guitar player, he goes to he reaches for these very odd intervals on the guitar that, like, probably a normal guitar player wouldn't go for. And as a result, you're like, dude, those are some really cool note choices you just grabbed right there. And it's really brought some cool stuff in. And I say that because I think everybody's obviously can't wait to hear Dirk play drums on the album. But I'm here to tell you, one of the fun things that Dirk's brought in is some really kick-ass guitar riffs and some things that we were completely not expecting. And I think that's the fun of making this album right now.
No doubt. Now, I'm going to ask the ugly question, Dave, and I'm asking it, and you know me well enough to know that I am not asking with any disrespect, but it's the question that people are thinking, being honest. Is there a chance that you know, it's obviously the singer of the band, it's obviously throat cancer. Yeah. Is there a chance that, you know, there might not be another Megadeth record, including the one you're working on?
Well, I think at this point we're optimistic about the treatments. Other cases have shown that it's throat cancer is treatable. I think it's at a place where it's certainly, I don't think, beyond the point of repair. So I think it's good. I mean, that's why I think shutting down right now, at least the touring side of it, is good, because I think if we tried to continue to go out and force Dave to sing and perform, that may not have such a good outcome. And it's funny, I think about it, when I broke my foot a couple years ago, this was 3 years ago now, backstage, we were just, the Dystopia tour was just rolling, man, and we're just right in the middle of it, and I friggin' break my foot backstage, you know, and I was going, Dave, I'll play the next 3 shows. You go, no, you're going home. We're going home right now. He goes, if that doesn't heal right now, you could have lifelong problems. So we got to shut down and you got to go home. And I did, and we did. And I know, you know, some fans obviously were upset, but and disappointed, as you would expect. I would be too if I was a fan in the audience, you know. Sure. But it was real, and we had to do it. So I was thinking about that same thing today with Dave. That, you know, the best thing we can do for him, just certainly as a singer and as a member of our group, but also just as a human, is just like let him. Let's just shut down. Let's take the pressure off of him. And, you know, that's fortunately the studio, the house that we have is right next door to Dave's property in Franklin. I mean, literally he can drive his little ATV over there, you know, and it's that close. So it's, you know, it's easy enough to be able to check in on stuff. And, you know, the days when Dave's feeling good, great. If there's days he's not, hey, no worries. You know, it's, so it's, you know, the good Lord has set up a pretty workable scenario that, you know, it's not like we're in some situation where we're way behind the 8 ball an album, we're way in debt. We got, you know what I mean? We believe me, we've been in those situations before years ago, you know, where it's like, oh my God, it's like we couldn't break up now if we wanted to, like we couldn't stop if we wanted to. There's no way out except forward. And I think we're in a good position now to be able to have this break. And, And because, like I said, the creativity, and you never know what creativity hits. And sometimes creativity, sometimes it hits in some of your darkest moments. The darkest moments where there's struggle can often bring about some of the greatest music. Dystopia was an album like that.
Sure.
I mean, we'd been through a management change, a lineup change. We were down to just me and Dave. I mean, the band, everything was completely just in shambles,
right.
And out of that, we made a Grammy Award-winning album. So, Dave's a warrior. He's a fighter, and he's got pretty good sensibilities about when to hit the gas and when to hit the brake, so
sure.
I think it's it's what it needs to be right at this exact time.
Sure. Well, I doubt it very, very much that it needs to be said, but I'll say it anyway. Not only as human beings, but as a radio show and as the metal community is saying, I think everybody is behind Dave and hoping that it all goes well, and not just so we get another Megadeth record, but because obviously we're
right.
First and foremost, especially with metal, it seems like the metal community, when it comes down to tough times like this, really does come together as a community.
Man, I think you're totally right about that. I think our community, maybe more than most, is we unite rather than divide around our adversities.
Sure.
And especially someone like Dave. I mean, he's a founder. He's a leader. I mean, he pretty much founded thrash metal. When his days in Metallica back then, it's his style is just it. That's who he is. It's the essence of him. And so yeah, it's again, Dave's no stranger to adversity. So
right.
I think for him, this is, I think, and also too, it's in this exact moment, for everybody to just really come around him in our community is it's really special, and we're definitely very, very thankful for everybody rallying around him right now.
Sure. Well, I don't know a real good way to transition out of this other than to make a hard change, so I'm just going to make a hard change here.
Yeah.
The actual reason you're calling was not this, but was to talk about what I've been calling, and I know you heard my interview with Tom the other day, but what I've been calling...
Yeah, wonderful chat, by the way. I appreciate that. It was very nice. Yeah.
Thanks. But you have to admit, David Ellefson has become the Ellefson Empire. You have a million things going all at the same time, man.
Well, I do. And, Tom has been a big supporter and proponent. And, I mean, he'll call me. Literally, we talk several times a day. I mean, he is my other band member, you know what
sure.
I mean? And it's great because I've needed somebody like that for a long time, someone who I can really turn to as a trusted advisor. And I've never been an artist who likes to self-produce myself, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I see some artists do it, and I've always been someone, I'm always collaborative. I think, there's strength in numbers that collaborating, with others is greater than the sum of its parts, in my opinion. So, but yeah, it's interesting how, every day it's some new thing. Hey, the label, hey, we can do Combat Records. Hey, let's start a coffee company. Hey, let's do that. Hey, why don't we do Bass Story? Hey, let's write another book, and I think where a lot of this stuff came from me was, in 2010 when Megadeth had disbanded was a real dark season for me. It was lonely. It was dark.
Sure.
And fortunately, I was sober, a family, my kids were young. I was involved in my church. I was involved in a lot of stuff. Thank God I had stability around me in other areas other than just being a bass player in a band.
Right.
Because so fortunately I had all that. And that was just, I think, from just kind of growing up in a sober environment and, coming from my, pretty good family stock as a kid in Minnesota. But regardless, when you get derailed like that, dude, it's that's a hard turn. And my first book, My Life with Death, talked kind of a lot about that. This new book, More Life with Death, has really talked more about things that have happened, and it's kind of the lessons I learned through that period of 2002 up until today, And also the things like, you know, these industries and these various business things that have come my way. And quite honestly, they've come my way. I haven't gone out to seek them out. And that's why I've learned over the years that, you know, when the phone is ringing and the emails are coming to you, like, that's kind of like the good Lord above sending you the life raft, saying, hey, you should do this. Like, say yes. You know, they didn't call you to hear you say no. They called you to hear you say yes.
Sure.
I'm good. I'm on board. And, you know, so just go ahead and do it. And I think it's interesting as I just read the audio, I read my book for the audio book that'll be coming out next month as well. And it was interesting to read my own story.
Sure.
Again, few months later now after we've edited it and everything, and just to read it again and kind of go, you kind of see my own life and my own truth in my own words, and then to hear me actually say it was kind of an interesting process to revisit it. Kind of going, okay, is it true? Does it still remain true today? And are these lessons, or is this story something I'm still proud to be able to tell to people? And it is. I was very happy about it. And so I don't know. I think that's it. And also, you know, when my mom passed away, right? Literally, not even a week after I broke my foot back in 2016.
Jeez.
My mother was 80 years old, and she was in a nursing home. She'd had a stroke, and she passed away. Unfortunately, I was able to be there with her for her last breath.
Right.
And I tell you what, that was another one of those life-changing moments, kind of, and not in some huge dramatic way, but I think just sort of a quiet reassurance of asking the question, if not now, when? In other words, if I'm not going to do this now, when am I ever going to get around to doing it? So, like, now is the moment. You know, now is the only moment that really matters. Sure. And just get on board and go do this, whatever it may be. So when Tom calls me and says, hey, we can secure Combat Records, hey, let's do a coffee company, hey, let's do, you know, whatever, fill in the blank, I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's go.
Right.
And I think by saying yes is really just, my world has gotten very wide, and in a very cool and creative way. So I'm just very thankful for it.
Sure. Now you mentioned that you you know that you got a unique perspective just from reading the book you just wrote. I'll share a quick story with you. I've written two autobiographical books. I've written 5 total, but 2 that are autobiographical. One was real time going through a divorce, and the other was I was in a pretty nasty burn accident. You know, I got long story on that, but I was 69% burned, 52% with grafts and blah blah blah. So it was a nasty one. Wow. I mean, it was a nasty one. And I went back and reread them. I wrote them both like 3 to 5 years ago. And I went back and looked at both maybe a year ago, and I kid you not, I don't even know the person that wrote the book anymore. Those are recent. Did you do that with your first book and think, wow, that is a very different place than where I am now?
Well, that's interesting to hear. So here's an interesting take on that. Sure. One is, you know, when I wrote my first book that I wrote, because I've written 3. My first one was sort of a musician self-help book called Making Music Your Business, a guide for young musicians.
Sure.
And I wrote it during the making of the Euthanasia album and the tour cycle. And by the time I edited it and got it published, it was 1997, which was right as the Cryptic Writings album was coming out.
Sure.
So much had changed in the business, even just in that short amount of time, because I'm talking about moments of a very rapidly changing business, especially with the internet coming into play around that time. Well, Hal Leonard bought the rights to the book. So one day I get an email from them saying, hey, or maybe it was a letter in the mail or something. They said, hey, we now have the rights to your book. And if you want to do an audio book, you know, send us the files, basically. Right. Okay. So I hit up my friend Randy. I said, yeah, let me go to your studio and let me narrate the book. And dude, that book, I mean, I'm in there. I literally had to rewrite the book in the studio while I was recording it, because I'm talking about computations of formulas around the sales of cassettes.
Sure.
Which the cassette has come back in the last couple of years, but 5 years ago the cassette was gone. I mean,
right.
Like that formula didn't even apply. I'm talking about making music videos. I'm like, oh my God, like this book is 20 years out of date in some areas,
Right.
So I essentially wrote Making Music Your Business like volume 2 in the studio with the audiobook. I have had that experience a bit. Now, when I read this recent book, More Life with Death, I think the hardest, because I literally wrote the bulk of the book in a week. We were on a copy tour through the Midwest back in March, me and Tom. And that's when we came home. I'd gotten a copy of the Ellefson family history that a great uncle of mine had written at the urging of my father back in the 70s. And because he was kind of the last living Ellefson family member who really knew the history of the Ellefsons coming over from Norway and settling in the little town of Jackson, Minnesota, where I grew up. And I grew up on that same farm and all this stuff. So we're actually putting that family history out as a PDF as part of this new book, as part of your online purchase. Yeah, you can actually get that family history as a download. I'm kind of just offering it as sort of a giveaway because I think it's cool. It's an awesome part of my family legacy I want out there even long after I'm gone. And so I think as I wrote the book, I sort of spit it all out in the course of about a week, right?
Right.
And then I tightened it up, and then as you know, things come and go.
Yeah.
All right, let me write something about Bass Story. All right, let me write something about me and Frank Bello doing Altitudes and Attitude. Okay, let me write something. Because life is a verb, and it keeps moving.
Right.
It's not. You can't just sort of close the book up and go, okay, that's done. That chapter's over. Close the book. Let's move on. Like more chapters of life just always keep writing themselves. So finally, we had to just say, okay, December 31st. 2018, we are done. I mean, that is it. We can't keep going. It has to stop because we got to turn it into the publisher to meet some deadlines. So, the reality of it is there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happened since I closed the frickin' book up. And so I was looking back on it just going, okay, now with new developments in the last 6 months, how does the story of 2018 back, is it still relevant? And it's what I've found, and you might have found the same thing, the lessons I've learned, even in the last 6 months, are just, I'm like a whole new guy.
Sure.
I'm like a totally different guy in 6 months than I was 6 months ago. And I think that's the beauty of these books, and I guess that's why there's YouTubers, and I had a YouTube channel, David Ellefson's Rock Shop, and one of the reasons I started that channel is because people were coming to me at trade shows like the NAMM show, and I go, man, why don't you write another book? And I was thinking, yeah, but writing a book can take like 2 years.
Yeah.
And, by the time you write it, it's out of date. And YouTube, and you can just, hey, it's, whatever. It's Monday. I got an idea. Let me throw this up.
Right.
Hey, Wednesday, I got a new idea. Let me throw it up. And you can do these little 5-10 minute little kind of video vignettes.
Sure.
That those also can be dated, but it's like you can kind of capture life on the fly with the internet where, printed material, as much as it lives forever, it also gets dated pretty quickly. So I don't know. I've done a little bit of both, and I figured, well, let me try my hand at another book, which is what we just did. So
no question.
There it is.
And now with the new book, there's obviously this soundtrack as well. Which, if anybody, it's a weird thing because I don't think it's something that's necessarily right up front. If you're a Megadeth fan, you would like. But I think if you're a David Ellefson fan that followed along through F5 and, even some of the Temple of Brutality type stuff, you hear different elements of your career. And then there's also pieces of it that are just stuff that I don't think anybody would have ever envisioned you doing. The David Glenn Isley stuff comes to mind.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I mean, I write a ton of stuff. I mean, most people know me from my, work in Megadeth. Some people know me me and Frank Bello just had some really terrific success earlier this year with our Altitudes and Attitude album that came out. Metal Allegiance is something we've got 2 records of Nuclear Blast, and we've had success with that. So, I mean, there's some stuff that's out there in a pretty big canon, if you will.
Sure.
But you're right. There's F5 was something that was my first. When Megadeth broke up in 2002, I went, what? That's it. I am never fucking putting another band together again. That was enough now. Like, we're done. You know. because, you know, Megadeth's a real band. It's a real rock and roll band. And we went through all of the trajectory of every, you know, legendary thing that you hear of, from Aerosmith to the Sex Pistols to Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses. I mean, Megadeth is that band. We have lived, and probably in some way continue to live, all of that. And,
sure.
you know, when you get off the big roller coaster ride of that big ride of rock stardom like that, you know, I don't know, I just sat on the ground next to it and just went, you know what, fuck that. I'm never getting on that ride again. And I'm lucky to have survived it. I'm lucky I didn't die. So, all right, I'm not doing that again. And then, you know, I got this little consulting job that I did for Peavey.
Right.
I was able to work out of my home office and, you know, go to the soccer games with my kids. My kids were real young, and, you know, and we had my family, we landed on our feet, and things got I started to develop a new life. And, you know, out of that, one day, a couple of friends here in town said, hey, come over and play some bass on something for us. And that led to forming F5. And I rediscovered the joy of music and the joy of being in a room with, you know, other musicians writing songs, making music, and just laughing and having fun and eating pizza, and just all the fun moments of creating a rock band really are. And that's why those demos are so special to me, because those are the timestamp of that exact moment of that band. Before we got record deals and before we went in the studio and it all got serious and it started to get, you know, because that's, of course, where all the band fights start and all the arguments start, and
right.
everything else is, you know, as soon as you try to make music a business, that's when all the shit goes down. But you know, through it, those guys have remained my friends, and you know, those demos are something I wanted to bring in and put on here, because my book opens essentially with F5.
Okay.
And then, you know, as I went through, in 1993, Megadeth, we had a break during the Countdown to Extinction tour, and one of our drummer then, Nick Menza, one of his good friends is this gentleman named Pat Shunk, and we met out mountain biking one day, because me and Nick would always go mountain biking in L.A., and me and Pat became fast friends. We're both Midwest guys, and so we got together and just started writing some tunes, and out of that, we wrote like 14 songs in the course of a couple of months, and this whole just creative bursts happen. Every day I'd wake up, I'd write, and we recorded these tracks. They were just demos. We never did anything with them, and time goes by, and earlier this year I was listening to them, and I just went, you know what, I have to put these on this Sleeping Giants album, because these are giant songs that literally have been sleeping in my vault, and I got to get them out. They need to see the light of day, and kind of like the book thing we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. You know, a song, you know, I guess just like a book, if I listen to it in this case 25 years later, and it's hitting me and making my arms hairs tingle the same way it did when I created the song 25 years ago, then I know that's a good song, and that song needs to come out so it can touch other people in the same way. And that's really what we did with Sleeping Giants, was pulled these literally sleeping giant songs out of the vault and put them on a record, and they really are the sort of audio backdrop to the narrative of the book.
No question. But let's not confuse anybody that you're not still a musician, Dave, because I guarantee you that if you took an album that people consider the greatest of all time, you know, Rust in Peace, you would listen to it today and say, yeah, I would change that, and I would change this, right? I mean, that's what musicians do.
Well, I listen to things mostly like okay, take Rust in Peace. I just remember how incredibly difficult it was to record that album, because it was before the digital age.
Right.
I mean, now, like, even when we're working on stuff, it's like, let me play this bass part once. Let me put this down. Okay, now let me do another one. Keep that one I just did. Don't throw that out, because you can
right.
digitally playlist things in Pro Tools. So it's like, you know, hang on to that. Let me do another version. Okay, keep that one. Let me try another one. Let me, you know what I mean? And now you go back and you've got options. And that's largely how I recorded the Megadeth 13 album, is I took 3 passes down every song, and we had these sort of optional ways, because we were recording bass on an album we didn't really have any lyrics and melodies to yet. And so there's all these things, but Rust in Peace, I mean, it was destructive record, man. When you hit the record button on the 2-inch tape,
right.
your previous take is gone, and
right.
you can't get it back.
Right.
And, you know, which is a testament to like Mike Clink and these guys, because Mike engineered that album as well as, you know, was a producer on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Mike could punch me in and out of, he could get, you know, a 16th note pick hit, like bang, and he'd grab that in and out without fail. And, you know, and so I just remember how complicated, because those songs were very complex, and we were young and we were playing it, you know, at just an incredibly high level. Whereas, you know, like, you know, sometimes I'll hear things and go, God, I wish we could have had a little bit better tone on, you know, maybe that guitar part, or I wish these drums had maybe a little more of a thunderous cannon to them. And then I'm not talking necessarily about Rust in Peace, but I'll go to like some record I've recorded. Like, say, let's just take these demos from 1993. You know, I listened to them and go, God, I had to remaster them because they needed to be beefed up. You know, they needed a little more low end on them. They needed to be, you know, so the production needed some improvement. But I didn't have the master tapes. I can't go in and remix them. I mean, they are what they are. So I would, of course, there's ways to remaster and kind of, you know, make things sound a little better. But at the same time, I was just going, God, there's a couple of scratchy guitar parts, or this is a little weird. But, you know, for the most part, I'm like, I don't want to go in and re-record it, because quite honestly, there's magic in that recording.
Right.
That's what I love about when Dave Grohl did that Sound City movie. You know, a lot of my records I grew up on, you know, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Cheap Trick. I mean, so many great records in my record collection were made at Sound City, and there really was magic in that room and on that console. And you can't, as much as you could go in and re-record those records, you'd lose the magic, man. There's a magic of what was happening at that moment in time that they captured on tape, that maybe you can go back and play it better or play it different, but you would really lose the magic and the spirit. And that really, to me, is the art of recorded music. Is you're not just capturing the notes, you're capturing a spirit in the room and a spirit of that performance at that exact moment in time that will never be replicated ever again.
No question, man. Well, since we're talking about the music, and I'm going to try and wrap this up, but I have two more quick topics I want to attack with you here. I want to talk really quickly about the label itself, and not necessarily putting out your music on it, but putting out, you know, the other bands, because this is that opportunity for you to kind of use your experience and share things that maybe a lot of people, you know, are not hearing or won't hear without your influence. You know, stuff like Dollskin is one of them, or even the redo of Last Crack. You know, a lot of people forgot about Last Crack in the last 28 years, that all of a sudden you guys, you know, you took the chance on a band that did not have success in the day, but made good music, and you put your name on it, which got people to listen again. And, you know, that's a testament to you, man. You between you and Tom, you've really re-energized a lot of music and a lot of bands that might not have gotten a chance otherwise.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. And, you know, that's the thing. You know, Tom is a real music lover. And whereas maybe I get a little lost in things because I'm a musician and I'm more analytical, you know, from that. But I'm a music fan too. I mean, I go back and I listen to stuff I grew up on. I mean, my vinyl collection right here is Judas Priest, Unleashed in the East, Montrose, 38 Special, Grand Funk. You know what I mean? I mean, that's all the stuff that I have, you know, from when I was a kid. So there's a part of me I go back to that because it's a comfort. It brings back happy times or sad times as a kid, and I get to relive those moments. And then again, like we just said about recorded music, and you're right. I mean, Last Crack is one of these bands who I think were deserving of that. And, you know, Tom has got really great A&R ears. And, you know, for your listeners, an A&R person is essentially the talent scout of a record label. And, you know, the days of great A&R, you know, Clive Davis, and, you know, you said anybody who's watched the Motley Crue movie, The Dirt, Tom Zutaut, you know, who signed Tesla and Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue, and you know what I mean? I mean, just these. I mean, that guy just had golden ears, man. I mean, he could hear things, and Michael Alago, who signed Metallica, you know, and wanted to sign Megadeth to Elektra. You know, I mean, these guys, they not only hear the music, they have a real vision for what, you know, we call it a career, but it's sort of a trajectory of what that music can do and how it can impact millions of people around the world. And that is a real skill. And Tom has that skill. I mean, he's one of those guys who has that. So I leave a lot of the label stuff to him, to kind of be the eyes and ears on the street for this stuff. And I think with Mark Slaughter, Autograph, Last Crack, are some more legacy artists who have had huge careers. He's really good. I mean, especially that Mark Slaughter record, man, Halfway There.
Yeah.
That is a great, I mean, my opinion, it's all the way there. I mean, that is a great freaking record, man. I mean, that's equivalent to anything he's ever done in his career. And very proud to have been able to put that out for him, And one thing we're good at with EMP is we blow shit up big, man.
Right.
We make a big noise. We get a lot of attention. And I think artists these days, look, they know they're very realistic about the money that's even in the business anymore. And legacy artists who can still tour and make money doing that, they appreciate that we can really blow things up big and make a big noise. And because that's half the battle, I think, is when you put something out, you want everybody to be aware of it.
Sure. But at the same time, if you started, I mean, one of the reasons it's getting that big noise is your name. But if you started putting out shit, your name wouldn't mean very much anymore. You'd be like, okay, the guy from Megadeth that can't produce good music.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, it's definitely, it takes all of it. And you've raised a good point, because to that end, the rules of the record business have not changed when it comes to that, you know. Years ago in the 70s when I was growing up, they were all pretty much all major labels that were putting out, at least the records I grew up on. And they were the gatekeepers. They controlled the flow of new music into the marketplace, to the record buyers. And they would only put out, Mercury, for instance, or Polygram or whoever, they would only put out, maybe 12 records a year. One was a rock album, another was a disco album, another was by a jazz artist, and and they would only flow so many records out. And while in this day and age the internet has given the ability for everybody to be able to create and put their content out there, which is a good thing, is a beautiful thing. There's a reason that those gatekeepers of yesteryear were so effective, because they really sought out the best of the best. And when they put their name, when it said Sony or Warner Brothers or Capitol Records on it, you knew it was going to be top level stuff. And to that end, that's exactly how me and Tom roll with EMP and Combat and all the stuff we put out. We don't just put out anything. And, it's yet at the same time, we try to have an open ear to artists who are trying to get in the game, and we try to be flexible and look. And if it's good and we can develop it, and we think it's something that can be developed along the way. Listen, we'll give it a shot.
No question. Last of the Empire, you have so many things I can't narrow it down into a short conversation. But as I'm sure you heard me say to Tom, I cannot make it through a day without Roast in Peace coffee. You have absolutely hooked me on this, and I'm totally a coffee snob, as you've told me once before you are. When are you going to get this coffee into, like, Giant Eagle or stores, Myers or whatever, to where people could just walk into Walmart and get it?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you didn't say when you're going to get it in K-cups, but
no,
because that's the other question. When are you going to get this in K-cups? Which is that I always answer. Look, there is a K-cup receptacle you can put in any of your K-cup machines. Right. All you got to do is just pour the Roast in Peace in there, and there's your K-cup. You're good. Because again, we are we like to have very high quality. We're high quality over high volume. The volume's in the music, the quality's in the coffee.
Right.
So, but I think it's funny. Tom and I were literally just talking about this last night, kind of the next moves for the coffee company, because we've done so much. In fact, even this last week, I have a partner over in the UK who had us at the Download Festival. With Ellefson Coffee there, which is always a pride and joy for my coffee to be available at the festivals.
Sure.
Through one of our vendors and stuff. But yeah, look, to get it into the stores and that, man, you think the record business is competitive, man. Grocery store shelf is incredibly competitive. I mean, there's a reason Pepsi, Coke, and Tostitos and Starbucks have the rule of the grocery store shelves, because it's like being in the major labels.
Right.
It's a competitive. The grocery store is a very competitive store to be in. So we are making some inroads on it. And I guess my thing with it is look, I didn't want to take my rock star money to all of a sudden throw it all into a coffee company. And,
right.
It's the idea is that this is a fun thing. It's part of the story of my life as a coffee company, but I'm certainly not going to mortgage my house to just go try to be a coffee guy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. To me, it's got to be just like a band. It has to start organically. It has to grow organically. Because to me, that's when it's believable. Because, if you just go get a bunch of venture capital and blow it up, I mean, that's fine, because there's an art to that as well, which I greatly respect. But that's not my wheelhouse. That's not my thing. So we're just really letting it kind of move to the next level on its own. And, hopefully it'll be at a grocery store near you soon.
Yeah. And if not, you can go to the Ellefson Coffee Company website and get it, which is what I do. I've tried them all, I think. I've tried the Skid Row. I tried the Autograph. I tried the Kenya Thrash. I tried the Roast in Peace. I did the 6-month thing that you can just buy, and they send you the different one every 6 months. I'm addicted to your coffee, man. I'll tell you straight up, I love it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
But the Roast in Peace is the best coffee, period, of anything. I just love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and it kind of like anything, I guess, that's, you got to have your flagship thing that you hang your hat on. That's our name as a company. Really, it does. It rests on that roast.
Right.
And which is great. I'm glad we have that, because man, it's kind of like writing a song that you're always known for. That is a hard thing. So it's the same thing in the coffee thing. If we have a roast, if we have a coffee that really defines us and who we are, man, as far as I'm concerned, that's half the battle right there.
No question. Well, David, we could talk and talk and talk, but I'm going to wrap this one up by simply saying there's a million things that people can check out with Mr. David Ellefson, whether you want to read about him, listen to him, drink something from him. Where should people go online, I guess, to find out all of the pieces, or is there a centralized hub?
Well, DavidEllefson.com is always the source of all my stuff. Megadeth.com, of course, for all the Megadeth related stuff. But yeah, DavidEllefson.com is really, I guess, the home, my ultimate home. Off there, of course, we have EllefsonCoffeeCo.com. We've got our Bass Story tour dates are there on DavidEllefson.com as well. And on Facebook and Instagram, we've got all of our social media out there as well. But yeah, start at DavidEllefson.com and let it tether you out from there.
Excellent. Well, David, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track from the new record. Usually I ask that you tell me a story about that, but instead, why don't you pick a song that people will hear if they come out to the Bass Story tour, and maybe give us just a quick overview of what the tour is going to include, since we didn't get to that.
Sure. Yeah, no, Bass Story Tour, this one's evolving a little more, because we have a band we're going to be traveling with, which are made up of myself, Tom Hazertz on vocals, and also Clayton from Hatchet will be joining us on guitar, as well as Dave Sharp and Opus from Dead by Wednesday, who are also on our label. So it's an in-house project, all EMP label group musicians, and a little more of a concert. This one is going to be more of a concert than a clinic, but also the storyteller component with it for sure. Because we have the new album, we've got some songs to draw from, and so let's play for the close up here. Let's play "If You Were God," which is a song that me and my friend Pat Shunk wrote back in 1993. It's from the demo session there, and it also features vocalist John Bush. Excellent. Singing on it, and this is John Bush at 10 a.m. in the morning. By the way, this is we had the song. I wrote the music. Pat wrote the lyric, And I said, dude, let's get John Bush over here. And he lived close by. He came over one morning and opened his mouth and just roared like a lion. And this is it. If You Were God.
Well, let's check it out right now. It's If You Were God. It is Ellefson from Sleeping Giants right here on your Classic Metal Show.